Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on Game Plan to Goal. I like to do a podcast episode sort of on this same topic in several years past. As we approach the end of the year, we're preparing for the new year and sort of the momentum that comes along with that. There'll be so many people that commit to New Year's resolutions, and statistics show that most of those people throw those New Year's resolutions out the window within 2 weeks or less of the new year. Because what happens is we get excited or motivated from the outside by the momentum of the new year and a New Year's resolution. And it sounds really great at the start of a year. It's kind of a beginning, right? And so there absolutely is a little bit of momentum or inertia that comes with setting a goal at the beginning of a month, the beginning of a week, the beginning of the year. James Clear spoke to that a little bit in his book on atomic habits. So there's absolutely some momentum to be picked up as you think about a time or a season of change to leverage the natural changing of the seasons or beginning of a month or a time period. And a new year obviously is a great time to do that. But motivation doesn't last. I think it's Zig Ziglar who said motivation doesn't last, but neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily, right? Just getting motivated from outside of ourselves, external sources, that can energize us, but it's not enough to keep us going and fuel long-term change and positive growth after the excitement wears off. And so as we approach the end of this year and the beginning of the new one, I always like to do a podcast episode on effective goal setting, because I want to give you something tangible, right? As you start to think about goals for next year and being successful with those goals, I want you to have an action plan and a strategy that's going to help you be more successful with that goal. So I'm going to walk you through a little worksheet that I created, and I just call it Game Plan to Goal, right? What's my game plan for reaching that goal? Now, here's the thing. Statistics tell us that we are 300% more likely to achieve a goal that we write down, commit it to paper, put a pen to paper and write it down, and B, when we are very specific with our action plan about how we get there. So just writing the goal in itself helps you be more successful. But if you write down the goal and you write down the strategy that's going to help you reach that goal, you are 300% more likely to actually achieve it. Now, I'm a big fan of goals in the context of growth. So I don't want you to just set a goal and quit. I want you to set a goal that is in the perspective of your long-term growth or big picture goals or your vision for your life. But that big picture vision or goal can be so big that it's overwhelming. So what I've found is that regardless of the dream, the goal, the big picture vision that you have, when you can break that down into small bite-sized chunks, it's much easier to accomplish it, right? Leveraging the power of small. And I've talked about that on several different podcast episodes. So I just have a simple little worksheet that I wanted to share with you. I'll share my screen if you're watching the full episode here on YouTube. But of course, if you're not, if you're listening to the podcast, I will put the link to download the worksheet in the show notes, so that you can, whenever you're done driving or walking or exercising or whenever you can get to a place where you can download the worksheet, you've got the worksheet and you can sit down and just use this as a strategy for your upcoming goals in the new year. So like anything, it's a tool, but what I found is that having tools in our tool belt can help us be successful. And that's what I want you to walk away with. So I'm going to share my screen and talk about the worksheet. And there again, I will absolutely put the link to download it in the show notes so you can have an opportunity to do that. So very simple, really. It's not rocket science, but like anything of principles of success, it's not the fact of the principle itself, it's the application of it to our life that helps us be successful. So the first thing I want you to be able to articulate very specific is, what is my goal? Write it down. There's a place at the top of the worksheet. What is my goal? And one of the biggest things that when I'm coaching people I work with is that specific goals are much more achievable because we can paint the picture of success in our mind. So, for example, if I were to describe, let me say I was describing to you a movie that I watched over the weekend, and I could say, oh, it's a movie about a boat and the boat sinks, the end. Right? You would kind of know the storyline. It's a story about a boat and the boat sinks, but you probably wouldn't think, oh, that's a good movie. Let me go watch that movie. Let me go rent that movie, right? That wouldn't be enough to interest you because in your mind, you don't really have a picture of anything except a boat sank. And you're like, well, that doesn't make me want to watch the movie, because it's the power of our words allowing us to visualize in our mind what success looks like. So if I were to say, instead of, oh, I watched a movie and it was about a boat and the boat sank, if I were to say, wow, I watched this really good movie, it was a fictional story about a real historical event where this huge luxury ocean liner that everybody said was built to be unsinkable starts to cross the ocean on its maiden voyage, and it hit an iceberg and it started to sink. And the problem with that was there weren't enough lifeboats for people on the boat, and as the boat sank, there was just chaos and panic. And at this point you're starting to see the drama of the story, and you've kind of got a picture. When I say iceberg, boat hitting an iceberg, you probably thought, wow, that water was cold, right? And so even though I didn't share all of the details with you, you started to paint the picture in your mind. And that's what I want you to do with your goal. I don't want you to just say, I want to be healthy in 2022. I mean, that's a good goal, but I want you to get specific with, what does that look like? When you say you want to be healthy, articulate that for me, describe it for me, paint the picture for me, paint the picture for you of what do you mean by that? So I don't want you to just put down, when I say what's your goal, I don't want you to just put down, well, my goal is to be healthier. I want you to put down, well, for me, healthier in 2022 means exercising 3 times a week or whatever it is. So maybe your goal is every week in 2022, except when I'm on vacation at the beach, I'm going to exercise 3 times a week by getting outside and walking for 15 minutes every day, whatever it is. I want you to just be able to articulate what that specific goal is. And then I want you to be able to identify why it's important to you. I want to get out, my goal for next year is to exercise 3 times a week. Why? Because I know that walking 3 times a week is going to decrease my blood pressure, and I want to be healthy so that I can be around to enjoy my kids and my grandkids. I want you to just tie that goal into why it's important. Why is it relevant? Why do you care anyway? And I want you to be able to speak to that, to put that down of why it's important to me, because there again, you need something that's going to help you drive action and when your motivation washes away, because there can be days when it's raining and you're like, I don't want to walk, but I want to be healthier. I know walking helps me be healthier, so I'm going to do it anyway. When am I going to achieve this goal, right? There again, setting a deadline for ourselves often helps us. It motivates us, it inspires us. It's like the football game, and that clock is winding down. And if you've ever watched sports or football or basketball or anything, it's amazing how much more effort and intensity all of the players put into those last few minutes when the game is close and the clock is winding down and they know that there's not much time, there's a deadline. And so the intensity just goes way up, right? Because they know there's a deadline coming. They know they've got to make that final push. It's kind of like when you know your last day at work before vacation is like your most productive, because you know you're going to be on vacation. You got to get things done. You've got a timeline. You got to get it done. And so you do. Then I want you to think through potential roadblocks. What are the things that might prevent me from being successful? If your goal is to walk 3 times a week, you want to walk to improve your health, potential roadblocks absolutely could be the weather. Yep, there are going to be days when you set out to walk and it might be raining. So I want you to think through, what are the potential roadblocks? What are the things that could pop up that get in my way? And then right across from that, I want you to put down how you can detour around those potential roadblocks. If you wrote down, it might be raining one day, then one of the ways you can navigate around that is to buy a raincoat. So I want you to be able to articulate what are the potential roadblocks, but then also answer those with a, here's how I'm going to navigate that, right? Because this is a plan, this is a strategy. And strategy means you've got a specific strategic way that you're going to navigate around that roadblock. Something else I like to talk about here in this section is someone who can help me with this. Maybe that's an accountability partner. Maybe that's someone in your prayer group or your women's group, or maybe that's just a spouse. You say, hey, I want to get healthier next year. Would you commit to walking with me at least one of these days? Whatever that looks like, who is somebody that can help you? And then if I get off track, here's how I'm going to get back on track. I love the concept of giving yourself some grace, because absolutely there are going to be times when we are not successful. So I always say, give yourself some grace, but don't miss twice. Don't miss twice. Once you get off track, then make sure you are getting back on track, because you don't want to create a pattern of not being successful. You want to create a pattern of repeated success over time. So give yourself some grace when you miss once, but don't miss twice, because sometimes life is going to get in the way. It happens, but don't miss twice. Your game plan is to get right back on. If I get off track one day, I'm going to get right back on track the next day. And then here, I think, is the most important part of this worksheet. What are 3 things that I will do every day that will help me achieve my goal? And make sure that you are choosing very, very, very small action items. You don't want to do these 3 things all day necessarily, but you want to do them every single day, because there we are leveraging the power of consistency, right? Compounding the efforts over time, small momentum, small gains over time. And you can see this in things like water. Water is a great example of a force that is simply consistent. If you've ever seen some of the impressive cliffs around the United States that there by the ocean, where the water has just repeatedly washed over and over and over and eroded some of the bank, some of the land over time, because it's not the first wave that causes the rock to erode away or smooths out some of the rough edges, but it's the 3000th wave, right? Over time, just a little bit. And so I want you to be able to harness that consistency. I had someone the other day who was asking me, I was talking about, actually it was a little bit of a bunny trail, and the presentation we were talking about was being motivational and encouraging other people, and from a leadership perspective. And we brought that in context in the conversation of the group I was facilitating, of personal goals and encouraging everybody else in our personal goals, and how do we feel when other people encourage us. And so we were talking about training to run a race, because this particular person who asked me the question, they're getting ready to train to do a 5K. And so we talked about, you don't just go out and run 3 miles all at once if you haven't been running. You start out by, today you're going to walk for just like 90 seconds. And then you might jog for 90 seconds, and then you walk for 90 seconds. And then tomorrow you might jog for a minute or 2 minutes, and then you walk for 2 minutes, and then you jog for 2 minutes. And so you build up over time, and that applies to physical goals, it applies to mental goals. Transformation takes time, and it's not going to happen overnight. And you've heard me talk over and over again about, the power of the process and consistency beating intensity. And that's why I talk about 3 things that you can do every single day that's going to help you be successful as you work forward and make progress. The problem is that it's frustrating, I know, because we like big things to happen. We like big goals to be accomplished. And when we do our 3 little small action steps, then it doesn't feel very exciting, right? And we like that. We like excitement of achieving. And three things that you only spend 5 minutes doing don't feel like you've accomplished very much. But if you leverage that over time, there again, it compounds. It's just that it's not always exciting in the moment. And it's also very easy when you have a small action step to carry out towards a bigger goal. It's also very easy to negotiate your way out of it. It's very easy to tell yourself, well, it's not a big thing, so it doesn't matter much if I skip it. But oh, it does matter, because you're missing out on the compounding effect. It's just like the penny that you save up and you double every day the amount of money that you've saved up, right? It's amazing how quickly you can get to huge amounts of money. Or maybe you've heard the analogy of how many times you have to fold a piece of paper before it to get eventually, if you folded a piece of paper in half, you're doubling the thickness of that paper. Well, if you double it again, and then double it again, and then keep folding it in half. And if you could do that, how many times would it take to be able to reach the sun, right? And it's incredible when you talk about that in terms of compounding. And that's what you want to do. When you're creating your game plan to goal, you want to be able to take advantage of that compounding, the power of small. It is incredibly powerful when we apply that, because transformation doesn't happen in a day. It happens every single day. And, suddenly then you get to a year down the line and you look back and you think, wow, how far I've come. I'm in such a much better place. But that's because I was committed to those daily actions every single day, right? Just consistently moving forward and making progress. So there you go. Game plan to goal. There again, I'm going to put the link to download the worksheet in the show notes. So if you are listening to the audio instead of watching the video, absolutely, you can download that and use that. And then shoot me a message on social. If you found this podcast episode to be valuable, screenshot it, share it on social media, send me a message and just let me know you've got something out of it, or you enjoyed this process, or how it's working for you. Let me know if you've been able to apply this concept to your circumstances and how it's working. See you next time.